Hey, you! Yes, you. Are you a web novelist who wants a contract, but you're not sure? Then this video is the one for you. So, the first thing that I have to say is I kind of have to beg you for a like and a subscription for this little old channel of mine. I really want to reach 100 subs by the end of this year, and if I do, as a little incentive for you, my audience, I'm going to review the 6 BTS webcomics and web novels that are coming out from Webtoon and Wattpad next year, January the 16th. All 6 of them are going to be reviewed by me. So, if you're interested in seeing that happen, you can hit that subscribe, and also you can share this video and convince some friends to come subscribe. And also, just don't think that I'm just gonna do them in January and then just leave it like that. No, even after January, I'm going to continue reviewing them because, as anyone who does web novels and webtoons will tell you, they're ongoing serials. So I'm not just going to make it a one and done thing. I'm going to continue doing it. So yeah, you can even convince some friends to subscribe. Just 100 guys, please. Anyway, this video has been brought to you by my book, Phantom Drag, an action high fantasy story with sci-fi elements that isn't just a generic medieval fantasy story. And since it is the sponsor of my video, you have to check it out, as is the law of YouTube, because I'm sure that is the law of YouTube that if I make a sponsorship, you are contractually obliged to check it out. So yeah, you'll find the links to the story in the description below. So you, yes you, fresh-faced amateur writer, I know that the main thing that you want to get from your writing after all those sleepless nights writing is to publish your story and to swim in that fat stacks, baby. But how exactly will you pull this off? I mean, you could save up some cash to get a good cover, to get a good editor, and then you put it on Amazon or to impress a publisher and to get your story published. Or you could impress a web fiction platform that you use or any other, and you could get contracted by them. But before you do that, hold up. Please, take a seat and let old Red Chaos 1 explain to you some things that you need to know before you go through the whole contracting thing. Now let us get 2 things out of the way. First, I'm a former law student, so when I say be careful with contracts and take them seriously, then do. Plenty of people have been burned by not practicing their due diligence in making sure that their contracts are legit and reading through their contracts to understand what exactly they're signing up for. Like, contracts are extremely complex things. There are multiple clauses involved in them, and you have to be sure that you understand what you're doing. Which is why I would advise having a lawyer. Or if you don't have a lawyer, I would advise doing some basic research on the contract, the terms that are being used, in order for you to understand what you're signing up for. Contracts are very serious things, and you could end up going to jail, or you can end up getting fined a hefty amount by a court. Second, there's some unfortunate truths, guys, that we have to go through. Most of the people who send out contracts proposals to us on either the web, from the web fiction platform that you're using, or on another, don't actually read your stories. Some actually do. There's some who actually read, looking for quality, looking for how popular it is, and if it's a fresh idea that they're sure could make some money. There's some that do, but others don't. They send out these proposals in order to reach some type of quota for people contracted. I mean, when I was offered a contract for my book in its earlier stages, it wasn't even more than 200 reads, meaning it wasn't popular enough for them to notice if they were looking for stuff that could bring an audience, or stuff that they were sure they had seen was capable of building an audience. And truth be told, it wasn't that good of a story back then. And a lot of people who I have spoken to on this matter who have received similar contracts, I've had the same thing. I've had the same thing to say. Even the message sent out is mainly a generic one. For example, I once received a contract proposal where they were talking about a different book but mistaking it as my own, and other people have received that. So yeah, some guys do not read our books. So yeah, that's an unfortunate part. They do not know what your book is or the contract in it. So you best be careful with that. It's an unfortunate truth, but it's one we have to look at. And another thing is, in the publishing pool, amateur authors like us, like guys, let's face it, we're amateur authors. We chase publishers. Publishers do not chase us. We go to them. Like, there is a lot of competition to get publishers. So unless we manage to do something especially exceptional to catch a publisher's attention, they won't come to you. Which isn't to discourage you from taking up contracts given to you by web fiction platforms, but you have to be aware what's really going on here. Your book can become extremely successful by taking up a contract that you have been given by a web fiction platform. Like, look, you can go to webnovel.com and you can see contracted books which are famous right now. Contracted books which have animes right now. Look at Wattpad. Some of their stories which have been contracted or even having live action adaptations. So there is the chance to be successful. But just as there is the risk in traditional publishing or in self-publishing on something like Amazon, you have to know that there is a big risk in this. Because your story might not be successful because the person getting it might not even know what type of story they're getting. Which means it'll be left to you and the editors there to try and fix something to make it something that is acceptable or something that can succeed on the platform. But like I've said, this stuff is mainly dice, so I'm not discouraging you. Just know what you're stepping into. Now, if you've ever held a web fiction contract, or if you've ever seen one, there's a chance that you have come across a certain term known as moral rights. Now, if you don't know what the term means, then allow good old Red Chaos 1 here to check old Wikipedia for you and let you know. Now, according to good old Wikipedia, it defines moral rights as a right of creators of copyrighted works generally recognized in civil law jurisdictions and to a lesser extent in some common law jurisdictions. So it's copyright. Now, if you're wondering why companies don't just go out of their way to call it copyright, well, it's because most of them are trying to disguise it from those type of people who don't bother to research their contracts or who don't bother to get a lawyer to look up their contracts before they sign them. And this is why I said you should research your contract, because most people don't know what moral rights are. Most people just skim through the contract and like, oh, I'm getting signed. Because like, look, a lot of us would be giddy to get signed. Like for me, when I received my contract that I was offered the first time, I was giddy. I was beyond excited. I thought I had made it big. But since I did law, I decided to look at the contract itself to see what it said. And what it said didn't sit well with me. That's why I'm saying, if you want to be contracted properly and you want to succeed, know what you're getting yourself into. With this, you have to know that if you sign this, the work isn't yours anymore thanks to the whole copyright moral rights thing. If you sign that paper or those digital pixels, you're giving up your copyrights and you must be ready to receive what comes with it. The last thing we need are future court cases similar to comic book writers suing Marvel and DC for owning the characters and royalties, though that might be disingenuous of me because contracts, web novel contracts, web fiction contracts in general, do offer royalties. So yeah, that might not be a problem, but just know you're giving up your copyright. Royalties will be there, but you don't own the work anymore. Now, not all contracts are the same. All web fiction contracts are not the same. That what I just mentioned is some of the general stuff that you must know. Some don't take full copyright, but will sometimes split it between you and the company at 50-50. And this can be a good thing or it can be a bad thing because remember, you own 50% of it. If the company goes under, like what happened with Tokyo Pop, who aren't a web fiction platform, but they're an example of what happened when the 50-50 copyright thing went sour because Tokyo Pop had 50-50 copyright with its writers, and when the company went under, the company still owned the 50%. So the other 50% that the writers had was, well, practically worthless, and they had to buy it back from the company. So that could possibly cause you some problems in future, but it could possibly still be good because you can just buy the other 50 away, buy the other 50 back from the company if they're willing to if they're willing to sell it. So, in general, be careful with web fiction contracts. Many of them are created to be lopsided in the company's favor. Like one that I was offered told me that I would be getting 5% in terms of what I would be paid from the revenue generated by the book. The company would be getting 95%, I would be getting 5%. We both owned the copyright for the book 50-50. Like I would get something like 40%, 30%, but 5%? Dude, that contract isn't one that you should sign. The time you're gonna make a decent amount, yeah, the companies made that contract to be lopsided in their favor. That's not a good contract for you. Some other companies will give you 50%, which is a good thing, and they might get the moral rights thing. This is why I'm saying you have to generally know what you want to sign up for. Are you willing to give up the copyright for your story in order to make some good money? Or do you want to keep it? Or do you want to own 50% of the copyright? And are you willing to make 5% from the revenue? So be careful with your contracts. But if you still want to go through with it, at least know what you're doing. So yeah, this has been Red Chaos 1. And this is just a little video I wanted to make to discuss the topic of web fiction contracts and web novel contracts. They're a big topic, and I think more people should really talk about them. And since I have some experience, I've received some and I've done law, so I know a bit about what the terms mean. I thought I could just talk about it. So yeah, this has been Red Chaos 1 signing off.